Please welcome to the stage, Philip Henry.
Hello. Okay, let's face it. There's nothing sexy about diarrhea, is there? And since that's the main outwardly noticeable symptom of Crohn's disease, this little inflammation of the intestinal tract stopped me dating for years. If you can imagine somebody slipping you a high-powered laxative at some point every day and you had no idea when it was going to go off, that's what it's like living with Crohn's disease. And that's why dating is so hard. Have you ever tried being romantic shouting through a toilet door? It's not easy. But eventually my libido won out and I decided to give dating another try. And I want to tell you how that went. So I knew her before the dark times, before the Crohn Wars began. She had her set of friends and I had mine, and there was some friend overlap, so occasionally we'd hang out together. But over the years, we saw each other less and less, and even though I thought about her every once in a while and ran the woulda, coulda, shouldas in my head, she disappeared from my life like so many other potential partners. And I was working as a hospital porter when I actually ran into her again. And it was within seconds of seeing her again, I clocked the nakedness of her ring finger. She was single. So I asked her out on a date, and she said yes. Numbers were exchanged, a place was agreed, a time and date was set. Now, I figured all I really needed was one good date. That would lead to a second and hopefully a third. 3 dates was the time to drop the Crohn's bombshell, I figured. Because up to 2 dates, you can kind of bail whenever you like, but after 3, you kind of have to have a good reason. And I figured no woman would be callous enough to say, it's because you've got a chronic illness, and I think it'll be a real drag. Now, you think my body would be complicit in this nefarious plan, but no. It wasn't going to give me 3 trouble-free dates. It wasn't even going to give me 1 trouble-free date. So, as I waited for the taxi to arrive that night, I was bolting back and forth between the front window and the toilet. And maybe it was the nerves making things worse, I don't know, but I finally got into the taxi and made it to the restaurant, and his back seat was still okay. And I walked in and I saw her there. She didn't see me yet, but she looked really good, and I could tell she'd made an effort. You know, she wanted this to work as much as I needed the toilet. So I bolted, and I made it to the cubicle with nanoseconds to spare. I tried to wait for somebody to use the hand dryer to cover the embarrassing noises, but it wasn't always possible. This was really bad. But I had to stay positive. She hadn't seen me. That was good. She didn't know I was in here. That was good. And if I could just get this all out of the way in one go, I might be okay for the rest of the night. I finally got off the toilet and left the cubicle. And I saw these 2 lads standing at the sink, kind of daring each other to take an ecstasy pill. So I walked up to them, took an Imodium. Third one tonight, guys. So after that, I went out, and after cursing the taxi driver for making me late, I had some drinks with Lydia, and we had dinner. I had the steak and chips. It was good, solid food. I was hoping it would settle my stomach, which was still turning like a washing machine. We talked over dinner, and she was lovely. She laughed at all my jokes, even the really crap ones. So, you know, this was going great. And there was a band playing across the street, and after dinner we decided to go over, and it was a lovely night, so we took our time, and I put my arm around her waist as we walked, and she put her head on my shoulder, and I thought, just for 1 second, I forgot there is a date saboteur hiding in your intestinal tract. So we watched the band for a while, and then it started. Just the odd little twinge at first, but I knew that foreshadowed something like a fire hose being shot down a toilet. My stomach was like the engine room of the Enterprise, and I could hear Scotty saying, "The warp core is going to breach, Captain, I can't stop it!" So I scanned the pub for the toilets, and I saw them at the far side. You know, it was only a journey of a few seconds at maximum warp. So if I left now, but then something I wasn't expecting happened. She made the move, right? While I had been trying to save the Federation's flagship, her hand had been edging across the bench we were sitting on towards mine, and I had reached it now, and she put her hand on top of mine and interlocked her fingers and gave me a nice little grip. And I turned to her, and she smiled at me. And I thought, oh my God, that's the most romantic thing that's happened to me in years. And I wanted to tell her that. And so much more, I wanted to reciprocate. But instead, I said, I think I see someone I know. Back in a minute. And with that, I broke our two-handed fist and ran into the toilets. So as I sat there in the cubicle, my stomach sank in a way that had nothing to do with Crohn's disease. She had made the move, and I had run away. I was so angry. When I left the toilets that night, Scotty confirmed it. The dilithium crystals were knackered. It would be hard to create any sort of forward momentum after this. When I got back to the bench, her hands were folded over her stomach. The conversation was polite but dry. I had embarrassed her. You know, she had made the move, and she thought I had rejected her. There was only one thing to do. So I said, Lydia, I didn't duck into the toilets because of you. The truth is, I just saw my crazy ex. And if she saw us together, she would have went mental. So I had to hide in there until she left. That was pathetic. It was ludicrous. And it was the most transparently obvious lie I have ever told. And she bought it! 20 minutes later, we're in the back of a taxi snogging on our way to her flat. 10 minutes later, we're in bed together. An undisclosed amount of minutes later, we're lying back in each other's arms smiling. I fell asleep that night, happy, content, and with no more emergencies reported by Scotty. And then the morning came. Now, mornings have always been the worst time for me. It's always been a sprint to get to the bathroom in time. So when I looked around this strange bedroom and realised I didn't even know where the bathroom was, I knew I was in trouble. I looked at the space next to me in the bed. She wasn't there. So I pulled on my boxers and I ran out of the bedroom. Right then, I knew I was in trouble. I heard the shower. I saw the door closed. So I ran down anyway and I knocked tentatively. Will you be long? Give me 10 or 15 minutes. Put the kettle on. 10 or 15 minutes? Are you joking? There was no way I could hold on for 10 or 15 minutes. My sphincter was already at maximum clenching tolerance. I looked around, but it was too much to hope that this little flat had 2 bathrooms. So I ran up the hall looking for anything that might do as a... And then I saw it. And I considered it for a good few seconds, considering the logistics, before deciding the cat's litter tray was not a good idea. So I ran into the living room and I scanned it quickly. There were 2 large vases. Let's call that plan B. Right? The sweat was dripping off my forehead by this point, and I ran into the kitchen, and there I saw the answer to my prayers. The kitchen bin. Right? It was about seat height, right? It had a bin liner in it, and next to it on the counter was a roll of kitchen tissue. So, with one deft move, I turned, pulled my boxers down, and started running towards it. My sphincter had conceded defeat by this point. The airlock was open and the cargo was rushing towards open space. I had one shot at this. When Lydia arrived, rubbing her damp hair, she stopped at the threshold to the kitchen and her mouth dropped open at what she was seeing. You made me breakfast. I nodded and ushered her towards the table and the bacon butty and mug of tea that I had made her. As she sat down, she looked up at me, shaking her head, and said, I can't believe you did this. And I said, I also emptied your bin. Thank you very much.